Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2021-22 season. My name is Dan and today we are coming at you with a Game Week 9 buy, sell, keep, avoid video all about your transfer plans. I know it's very early in the week, but we do need to start thinking nice and early about what kind of transfer moves we might want to be making ahead of Game Week 9. Who are we going to buy? Who are we going to sell? Who are we going to keep? Who are we going to avoid? You know, you guys know the drill by now. But of course, guys, if you do enjoy what you see today, please do like the video. This is obviously one of the main videos of the week. I'm sure a lot of you guys are enjoying it. So please do let me know if you are enjoying it, if you like the kind of changes I've made to it recently. We have changed the graphics up a little bit, so hopefully that is a good thing. Do let me know. And of course, guys, subscribe if you're new around here as well. We are aiming to get 100,000 subscribers as quickly as possible. Let's see how quickly we can do it. But I can only do that with your help. But before we go any further, a quick word from our regular sponsor, that is OneFootball. A great sponsor of the channel, and it's basically a great football app slash website. Everything all about football. If you want to check the scores, if you want to check the lineups, if you want to check the stats, that's what I mainly use OneFootball for. Just on my phone, get the app. If you want to find out the lineups, you want to find out who scored from games you've not necessarily watched, you need a mobile device, you need a mobile application that's going to do that for you. OneFootball is the one, but it's also got some really good football news and gossip and stuff like that on there as well. So you can just switch from looking at tables, looking at scores, to looking at who your team is going to transfer in. Loads of things to love about it. Do go get it. Link in the description, completely free, of course. So the rules of the video: buys are players you probably don't have but should consider bringing in. Sells are players you probably have but should consider removing. Keeps are players you probably have. You're probably thinking about getting rid of them. I think you should keep them. And finally, avoids. They're pretty hyped up right now. These players are. Everyone's talking about them. A lot of people are bringing them in. I actually think you should not buy these players. So yeah, I'm sure a lot of you guys know the rules of this video by now. But it's always just for the new people around. It's always good to talk about what each category means, really. But yeah, like I say, guys, if you are watching this video on Tuesday or on Wednesday, there's still European football to play. I would just recommend that you don't make transfers too early. There could be injuries, there could be rotations, we could get some clues as to starting lineups for the weekend and stuff like that. So just try and be a little bit patient, I think, this week. Yeah, without further ado, let's have a look at some of the buys. So our first buy is João Cancelo. I'll be honest, guys, I struggled a little bit trying to decide who to put on the buys this week. It seems like we're in a bit of a middle ground at the moment, where players who most of us already have, they're doing fine, and the players we don't necessarily have, they're doing, well, they're not quite doing well enough to make them must buys, I guess. But I know a lot of you guys are in the market for a new defender, whether you're replacing Alonso or Shaw or someone else. Most of you are going to probably be looking immediately towards Chilwell for your replacement. Don't get me wrong, great pick, but I do think Cancelo is the priority move right now if you don't already have him. As, there's just a lot to like about Cancelo. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. For the record, before I say anything else, this video has been recorded before Champions League lineups. I don't know who's starting. If Chilwell starts midweek, that instantly makes him a risk for the weekend. So maybe that makes you prefer Cancelo even more. If Chilwell gets rested midweek, that maybe actually makes Chilwell a better option. But if I'm honest, if I'm speaking right now without any knowledge of the future, I guess, I do think there is a chance that Alonso starts in a game or two over the next few games in the Premier League. I do think that these are kind of the fixtures where Alonso would typically start under Tuchel's massive rotation. We don't know for sure, but yeah, I wouldn't want you to think that Chilwell is super nailed on. But Cancelo is a very different beast. Arguably just as attacking as those Chelsea fullbacks, but Cancelo is more nailed on. He's City's first choice fullback without a doubt. People will say, oh, Zinchenko's going to come in and replace Cancelo, but that's actually more likely that Walker and Zinchenko are going to be the two players who are going to be rotated, and Cancelo will probably play near enough every single match. Not every single match, but the vast majority of matches, because he is City's best best fullback for sure, but one of their best players as well, and he really is so important to the way they kind of set out, to be honest. And the other thing is that City's defence is just absolutely insane. They are not conceding any chances really at all. Ederson's just standing between the sticks with nothing to do. They're kind of controlling these games, and a clean sheet looks more than likely every single game they play. Whether it's a difficult opponent, whether it's a hard opponent, every single game you back City to keep a clean sheet, and that's such a good thing. I wouldn't be surprised if City honestly broke some kind of defensive record this year. And to top it off, the fixtures look great all the way until the end of the calendar year. I would even consider a double up on that City defence. So I do really recommend that Cancelo is your priority defensive signing. After you have him, maybe you should then start considering some of the Chelsea boys. Next buy is Brian Mbeumo. It is Brentford time. Don't let people tell you that the Brentford fixture swing starts in game week 10. It doesn't start in game week 10. It starts right now. So, despite being a big name, Leicester are a team that are conceding plenty of chances. In fact, they've conceded the second most shots of any team in the league so far this season. Only Leeds have conceded more, a couple more shots than Leicester, and only Burnley have conceded more shots in the box than Leicester. I could go on and on about how Leicester, they're not as good as people think. That's not really what this part of the video is about. What I'm trying to say is that Brentford, they've shown they're a really, really decent football team. They have an insane fixture swing coming their way, and it starts now. Not next week, it starts right now. So even after Leicester, they play Burnley, Norwich, Newcastle, Everton, who are kind of been a bit disappointing, Spurs, they've been one of the weaker defences in the league so far this season, Leeds, Watford. All of these teams all in a row. And I can really see some Brentford players being among the top scorers now over the next sort of 5-6 game weeks. Tony, he's a great forward option. Pinnock, great target man on those set pieces for playing for a kind of tough defence. But the easiest player to get in your team right now is Mbeumo. He's listed as a midfielder despite playing as a striker. He is super cheap, so you can basically switch anyone you have in your midfield for him directly without really having to put much effort into doing it. Any midfielder you don't particularly like in your team, just do a straight switch to Mbeumo. It's so easy. I guess I think I really like this maybe the most because Mbeumo is also a differential enough that most casual players will not see this one coming. They won't see Mbeumo's hauls coming, and I do think the points are coming for him. A few people have kind of questioned Mbeumo's finishing. He's hit the post more than any other player this season, but maybe this could be just a bit of bad luck. Mbeumo has 2 seasons worth of data in the Championship of being a prolific goal scorer, and if you look at his stats on screen, he's actually slightly overperforming on his XG, and that was during a time where he's playing some very, very difficult fixtures as well. So during these easier fixtures, there's going to be more goal scoring opportunities. He's going to be able to generate more XG, and if he can continue to outperform it, because yes, guys, he is overperforming his XG, then there's going to be a lot of goals here. There's going to be, well, at least a decent few amount of goals, and for a midfielder, that means a lot of points. So I'm really backing Mbeumo to make the most of this run of fixtures, and I really do recommend you try and get in there too. On to some sales. We've got Cristiano Ronaldo. The dream is over already, isn't it, lads? Ronaldo, he had a great start to life back in the Premier League, but over the last few fixtures, he's had, over the last 3, I think he's had no big chances. He's generated just 0.31 expected goals. Yeah, that is right. He's only had 1 shot on target as well. So, last 3 games, seriously disappointed, and in kind of FPL terms, this is just completely unacceptable for a 12.5 million player, and the price really is the key here. Can you really afford to keep him in your team? You're probably not going to captain him at any point in the near future. With Salah in your team too, it basically means if you've got Ronaldo, you can't afford any other premium player. How many points are you going to lose out on from not going for the other expensive guys because you're holding on to Ronaldo? Lukaku, Vardy, Son, Werner, Kane, KDB, all of these players, they could pop off over the next few game weeks. How many potential captain hauls are you going to miss out on because Salah is going to be your only captain option? Maybe that's not such a bad thing, right, guys? But if you've only got 1 captain option, you don't have any flexibility at all there. It just seems like United are in a bad place right now with some bad fixtures coming up too. Are things going to immediately improve with the next fixture being a game against Liverpool, who are on fire right now? Probably not, right? Ronaldo seems like a player to remove now, kind of with the view to bring him back at a later date when perhaps things do improve at United. I don't want you guys to get me wrong. We definitely should not be writing off Ronaldo entirely. That would be pretty stupid, right? But now is not the time to be patient, as you do run the risk of missing out on some huge returns from those other players around his price point. The main replacement targets are obviously going to be Lukaku, Vardy, and Kane. They're kind of nice direct replacements. If you want me to tell you specifically which one to go for as your Ronaldo replacement, I don't know the answer. All of those players are huge players. They're huge, they're expensive in FPL because they're fantastic football players, and each of them have that chance every single game week of doing something magical, right? That's why they're so expensive. That's why they're household names. So I guess it kind of depends in a way what kind of FPL manager you are. I would say Lukaku is the fixtures pick. He's a decent captain option as well. Vardy is the form pick. Not the fixtures matter too much to him anyway. And Kane is probably the pick you go for if you're trying to predict the future a little bit. So I guess it depends on what kind of FPL manager you are. But also, don't be afraid to go for someone a little bit cheaper if you want to. If you don't want to go for another expensive striker, Tony and Wilson, they look like really nice little picks. So maybe you can go for them. Just make sure that if you do go for a cheaper forward like Tony or Wilson or someone like that, if you do that, kind of try and make sure you do have a plan to pivot back to a more expensive premium forward in the future should you need to, because the worst thing is if you're stuck with your money a little bit too spread out and you can't get back to a Ronaldo, you can't get to a Lukaku if you need to, or a Kane or whoever, and you're kind of stuck in a way. So do make sure you've got a plan to get a premium player back if you do downgrade Ronaldo. Next sell is Diogo Jota. Now that the Liverpool's fixtures look a lot worse, it's probably not the right time to triple up on Liverpool, is it? Sure, Salah, he's a must-have. Trent's probably a must-have too. But these are kind of premium players. They're very much set and forget. The way to make the most of FPL, get the most points out of those cheaper players, is to own them at the right moments and rotate them in and out of your team using transfers. And you know, trying to find the players to own at the right moment, I would say that decidedly now is probably not the right moment to own Jota, right? Firmino's back. He's just scored a hat-trick. Liverpool look, you know, in phenomenal nick with their usual 3 forwards leading the line. And whilst that probably doesn't mean that Jota's going to be frozen out of the team entirely, it is going to hamper his minutes. So please don't think that Klopp will play all 4 attackers. It won't happen. It certainly won't happen very often. It'll happen once in a blue moon. So don't get your hopes up on that happening. Jota will occasionally replace one of the main 3, Firmino, Mane and Salah. Almost certainly not in this next fixture, I would say. So, you know, with United away next, Brighton after that, it makes it really easy to transfer out Jota now. Even in a worst case scenario, you can't see Jota scoring many points over the next 2. The problem is replacements. Aside from the super expensive guys, there's only really 2 midfielders that I would really want right now. And those 2 players are Mbeumo and Rafinha. I'm not saying I hate other midfield options, but I'm not 100% convinced by anyone else at this exact moment. Like I say, I feel like I'm in a transfer no man's land a little bit at the moment. Maybe that's not a good thing, but I guess if you don't have one of Mbeumo or Rafinha, I would make him the player to bring in instead of Jota. On to some keeps, Romelu Lukaku. Now, what kind of lunatic would transfer out to one of the world's best forwards ahead of a home game against Norwich? Well, it turns out quite a lot of people. There's kind of been this notion recently that Lukaku has been out of form, not clinical enough, missing chances. Okay, yeah, maybe he's not been at his absolute best, but I don't think that's the whole story. As you can kind of see on the stats on screen, Lukaku's actually outperformed his XG, and the real issue seems to lie with the lack of chances in general over the last few games. 8 shots in 5. It's not particularly great reading, is it, guys? So could it be that maybe Chelsea are just not really a football side set out to benefit a striker? Maybe. That's probably a bit of truth in that. But I do think the major piece of information that people are missing when judging Lukaku is the fixtures that he's played in so far for Chelsea in the Premier League. So the fixtures so far that Lukaku's been involved in have been Arsenal, Liverpool, Villa, Spurs, City, Southampton and Brentford. That's not exactly an easy run of 7 games, and he has 3 goals in that 7 games. I think Brentford in particular, people will naturally be disappointed in, but we have to remember that just because they're a newly promoted side, it doesn't automatically mean the big players are going to go and dominate these teams. Southampton, I kind of understand the disappointment, I guess, but the second easiest game really in the run that Lukaku's played so far, the second easiest one was Villa. Not exactly an easy game anyway, and he scored twice. So yes, Lukaku is probably not at his best right now, and if you don't have him, you probably want to have, you know, a bit of a think before committing to him. But if he's going to break his duck, is there really a better fixture to do it in than Norwich at home? Literally the best fixture a striker can have in a year-long fixture calendar. Selling Lukaku because he's blanked a few times seems like a really reactionary, short-sighted, maybe even a noob move. Yeah, maybe it pays off as with any transfer move, but if you sell Lukaku right now and you get punished for it, I feel like you have nobody to blame but yourself. So, hat-trick against Norwich incoming, and perhaps some more goals as well against Newcastle and Burnley after that. My other keep is Mikel Antonio. I would say, guys, just give it one more game. That's all I'm going to say. One more game. So, Antonio, he's been disappointing recently, seriously. I think maybe he set some unrealistic expectations over the first few games. Since then, just the one goal. Don't get me wrong, guys, it does suck, but I don't think we can say yet that Antonio is a bad player or that he's in bad form. The underlying stats actually look really good. He has been seriously underperforming on them. 1 goal from an XG of 2, 0 assists from an XA of 1.3. It's not like he's not getting chances, he's just not finishing them in the very recent term. If you saw these underlying stats, however, without seeing the actual goals and assists, and saw that, you know, these underlying stats were recorded over the course of 4 games, because remember, he was suspended for 1, you'd look at these stats and you'd be like, wow, must buy. Clearly this player is about to erupt. Now, FPL, unfortunately, is not that simple, but I want you guys who own Antonio right now, unless you've got a kind of big and very specific transfer move that you've kind of planned out, you really love it, I do want you to try and keep Antonio for the Spurs game. So Spurs have recorded some of the worst defensive stats in the entire league this season. They are shipping chances. This game is also West Ham's biggest game of the season, their big derby. They're always really up for this game against Spurs, and there's always goals. The last 4 times these two teams met, it was 2-1 to West Ham, 3-3 draw, 2-0 to Spurs, and 3-2 to Spurs. That's an average of 4 goals per game between the two teams. And I genuinely just think that there's a real possibility that Antonio could go off in this game, and this could be one of the biggest scores, if you like, of the entire game week. If not, or the score maybe isn't as huge. At that point, maybe that's the time to consider maybe selling Antonio. But guys, I really do just think you should wait 1 more week. Finally, some avoids. We're going to start you off with Bobby Firmino. 3 shots, all in the box, all big chances, all goals. So Firmino is definitely going to win the award for biggest knee-jerk transfer of the week. Those of you who have been playing FPL for a while are probably thinking, Dan, don't tell anyone. Don't just let people buy Firmino. This is FPL natural selection at its finest. And it's a bit of a rite of passage, I suppose. I guess we have all been there at one point. Firmino gets a random haul and we all want to buy him. It never really works out though, does it? Guys, Firmino was kind of lucky to score 3 tap-ins against a Watford team who, if we're being real, is perhaps one of the worst, if not the worst, Premier League performance we've seen in quite some time. He's a wavy player. I really do like him, but I'm sure even Liverpool fans will agree with me. Bobby's not really a prolific goal scorer. He consistently underperforms on his XG if you look at a larger sample size. His role in the team is not really to be a goal scorer, and for that money and a player listed as a forward, we do need a kind of a proper goal scorer there. Now Firmino is also an awkward price, where there's not really an obvious escape route if everything goes wrong, which it probably will. So with these fixtures, Firmino's reputation as an FPL asset, and I guess the price, maybe buying him off the back of 1 decent score is a bit premature, a bit of a, dare I say, knee-jerk. And my final avoid is Youri Tielemans. Lots of people have transferred in Youri Tielemans so far this game week. Maybe some people think he's the answer to their mid-priced midfield prayers. I'm not having it personally. I feel like we do this every year at least once with Tielemans. He scores a random banger goal because he takes a lot of pot shots outside the box. He gets this odd, decent score. Everyone's getting hypes. But as you can kind of see by the stats on screen, he's far from a goal scorer. Just 0.58 XG in 5 games. 3 shots in the box. No big chances. And whilst I won't deny, he does have a bit of creative potential, especially because of those set pieces. But we do need to remember what he is, and he's a fairly deeply playing, defensive-minded, I guess, midfielder. And it's basically a golden rule not to pick these types of players in FPL. Not because they're bad football players, but because they don't have the same FPL point scoring potential as the wingers and some attacking midfielders as well. And 6.4 million is not exactly cheap for this kind of player, I guess. Now Leicester, they aren't exactly on flames right now. Even with their win against United, they've actually had some pretty bad scores really in the Premier League, particularly in recent times. And I feel like you can get some more explosive players, more predictable players as well, who are scoring more normal goals, I guess would be one way of saying it, with better fixtures as well for similar money or cheaper, right? So despite the hype, I do think that Tielemans has to go down as an avoid for me, I think. So, in summary, Man City defence, that's your priority before the Chelsea defence, I think. But by all means, trying to get both. Brentford are the one team I would be targeting to get the most right now. even ahead of the Leicester game. I don't think it's a bad fixture. I really don't think it's a bad fixture for Brentford. And Mbeumo is my favourite, but Tony and Pinnock, they're great shouts too. Remember, there was a few odd rotations last game week like Diaz and Jimenez, so don't try and panic too much on guys like that. Try and use multiple game weeks as evidence for your transfer decisions. And again, if you can, try to wait until after those European games before we lock in those transfers. Thank you so much for watching today, guys. I hope you did enjoy. If you did, please do leave a like on the video. It massively helps out the channel. And of course, if you are new around here, please do subscribe as well. That would be really, really awesome. Plenty of content to come this week, as always. We're going to try and help you out your fantasy teams and help you get the best ranks and achieve your goals if we possibly can. But yeah, enjoy the midweek football, guys. I look forward to seeing you on tomorrow's video, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.